All right, thank you all for tuning in. Of course, it is a Tuesday, so you guys know what that means. It is the Tuesday Rhythm College Basketball Sweats live stream presented by myself, Josh Appelbaum, and of course, powered by Rhythm. So, if you've been to these live streams before, number one, thank you for tuning in. These live streams are always great when I'm able to see some familiar screen names and faces and get some questions answered. And I always get excited when we have new people tuning in because that just means that Rhythm is getting bigger and bigger, and more people are being introduced to Rhythm. And once you kind of know how to use Rhythm to your advantage, it can really change the way that we are approaching sports betting. So I want to say thank you everyone for tuning in. Hope you're having a great Tuesday. A lot going on at Rhythm. I want to give a shout out to the Rhythm team, Alec, James Santor, Megan, Brian, the whole crew, because there's a lot going on right now. And if you look first, most importantly, right here, smack dab in the middle of the Rhythm, account when you log in from the app, or you can use it on the desktop as well. You're going to see right here, college basketball March Madness brackets are here. So if you didn't see this yet, now's the time to request your bracket. All you need is an active account, or if you don't have an active account, you can just do the 7-day free trial. And it's not just college hoops, but all sports included, especially the fact that, NBA is huge right now. So if you do a lot of NBA player props or just bet conventional spread, money line, or total, that'll be available to you. And I really love that MLB is coming soon as well. So we got this MLB tab up here. But really, once the calendar flips from February to March, you kind of feel like, hey, spring is kind of in the air. It's one of my favorite times of the year because we've been grinding so hard through, the winter months and the NFL and college football that, hey, it feels like spring is upon us. We got MLB spring training in full view. We're going to have, thank God, this year all the Rhythm system matches and predictions for MLB, which I'm excited about. But before we get there, we got the best sports betting event of the year, March Madness. So I have different takes when it comes to betting March Madness. I look at creating a contrarian bracket, which basically means you start from the middle and work your way out. A lot of people, when they get their bracket, they'll start on the edges and they'll start at the round of 64, move their way in, work their way in. I kind of go the other way as a contrarian. In order to win your bracket, typically you got to be different than the herd, than the masses. So the masses are probably all going to take Auburn or Duke. That means you're going to have to pick a different champion. Maybe you're going to pick, I don't know, a team like Houston or some other team that is catching your eye. So you start in the middle by picking a champion that's different from everyone else, because if Duke or Auburn wins, then everyone wins and you're not going to differentiate yourself. But if they don't win and you're one of the few that has a different champion, that can really set you apart. And really the other thing that people need to realize when they're betting, and I love betting each game, but brackets, are super fun as well, is that you get more points the deeper you get into the bracket. So how many times, whether you do it on ESPN or Yahoo, I do it with my friends every single year. We do like, a friendly bracket from all the kids I grew up with. But after the first day, you'll see certain people are at the leaderboard at the very top. But the people at the top after the first day or second day, or even the first or second round, they really aren't always the people that win the whole thing. So you might have a great opening round where you hit a vast majority of your bets, or the teams that you predicted to win. But if they ended up getting knocked out or don't go far, all those early points don't really get you that far. It's really the importance of each round, the points getting, more and more points for each round that you get correct. It's more important, basically. And I make this analogy, like if you're watching Jeopardy. If you're a fan of Jeopardy, what does it mean if you get all the $100 clues right when someone else is getting all the $1,000 clues right? You might have more correct answers, but their clues are worth more money. So there's a guy that James Holzhauser. I might be mispronouncing his name, but he was a sharp sports bettor and he crushed it on Jeopardy. And one of his tips was, when you start on Jeopardy, pick all the expensive clues first. Don't go to the 100s and work your way down. Go start down and work your way basically up, because those more important clues are going to be more money. Just like in the bracket, if you want to win the bracket, it's not about getting the outside, first games right. It's about having as many teams deep in to Sweet 16, Elite 8, Final Four as you can get. Now, I say that in terms of creating a contrarian bracket, but what I love is the fact that Rhythm is going to give us their AI model brackets. You can kind of use them together. So it'll be different brackets. You can create up to 3 different models. Maybe you focus on March Madness teams that have really good scoring offenses or are good at free throw shooting or play great defense or have slower tempos. You can actually, create these brackets based upon the data, the criteria that you're most interested in. So long story short, again, it's March. I'm still in, Boston where the snow is melting finally. I'm starting to see some grass in my backyard, which is nice. But it just means that March Madness is right around the corner. So if you haven't done it yet, request your bracket. And also, if you guys want to make everyone at Rhythm and me very happy, give Rhythm a 5-star review in the App Store. If you're taking it from, Google with your Android phone or iTunes with Apple, 5 stars would go a long way. Help us to continue to grow Rhythm and get more, continue to rise up the charts, which is always a great thing. So as we have some housekeeping out of the way now, and I'm seeing more and more people file in, remember, you can always throw your comments. Have to hopefully answer as many of those as we possibly can. But I really have basically my trusty notebook as I bring to every live stream that we do. I have 3 bets in pocket. So I'm gonna kind of walk through the 3 bets that I have that I've already played. In pocket just means technically if you are at a sports book and you walk up to the counter, the cashier, the ticket window, you place your bet, give them the money, tell them to play. They're going to give you that ticket, and you're going to take that ticket, put it in your wallet, put it in your pocket. So in pocket just means these are bets that I've already made. Of course, I don't have any in pocket bets because, I basically bet through all the apps on my phone in Massachusetts. Although I must say, if you're like me and you live in the outskirts of Boston, there's a new sports book that is actually launching tomorrow. It's called the Nash in Nashua, New Hampshire. So the wife and I, we go up to Nashua. It's only about 15 minutes from our house. No sales tax. That's not bad either. But you go to Costco, do your errands, and we've been seeing them work on the Nash, the casino and sports book in Nashua, for like months and months and months. The grand opening is tomorrow. So I don't know. Maybe we'll have to do a live Rhythm stream from the Nash and get that going. But either way, I have 3 bets that I've already placed that I'm going to walk through and explain to you guys how I use Rhythm and how I've come to these conclusions. I have 2 more bets that are pretty hard leans for me. They're checking off quite a few boxes, but maybe not all the boxes. And then I have 2 bets that I call the red flag bets, where maybe there's a small criteria here and there that you like, and maybe there's a good Rhythm edge, but the betting market is kind of going the opposite direction. So when I'm placing my bets, again, this might be wash, rinse, repeat if you heard me say this, and there are different ways to bet using Rhythm. But my angle here is to focus on first what the market is doing, in terms of what did the line open at, how has it moved, where are the bet splits, public and sharp bettors at both DraftKings and Circa, and then also look at my system matches, look at other resources like Ken Palm and advanced analytics, and then the cherry on top is my Rhythm edge. So if I have done all my work, I feel like I've done it correctly, I've kind of read the market, identified a sharp bet, then hopefully if this is a 4-point dog that I'm betting, Rhythm has that dog plus 2.1, and I feel like I have a good edge. Or maybe I'm money lining a short favorite at minus 150, and maybe they're minus 2.5 in the market. Rhythm says they should be minus 4. It's that final cherry on top that makes me more confident to place my bet. So with that being said, as more and more people file in, I think we're ready to go on a Tuesday. Let's get right down to business. I'm going to walk through my thought process. And again, this will be maybe new to some people, other people, maybe you've kind of done a Sunday Sweats with us before, or you've done one of these Tuesday live streams. So maybe it's just a bit of a rehash, but I think it's important. And what I really love about doing these live streams is that, the team at Rhythm, so many sharp people do these live streams throughout the week, but their processes might be a little bit different. So it gives you the opportunity with Rhythm. We have the hard data that we can use to our advantage, but whether it's myself or, some of the other people who do the live streams, they might kind of work their way to a conclusion a little bit differently. So each live sweat that you're going to catch from Rhythm throughout the week, you can kind of pick and choose maybe what you want to apply to your own personal handicapping process. But with that being said, let's start betting some games. What do you say? So I want to start off with the first game of the night for me, and here's kind of the way that I look at it as a contrarian bettor. We do have conference tournaments tonight. We have a bunch of really big, heavily bet games and ranked teams, but I'm not going to focus on the big ones. I'm not going to focus on a lot of these conference tournaments, although I do have a couple. I want to focus on games that might not be the most popular games tonight, but based on the market and the Rhythm edge, basically, hopefully, will give us some winners here. And remember, the betting public is really going to focus on games that are on ESPN, primetime games, heavily bet teams, popular teams, star teams, ranked teams. But the important thing is that whether you bet a tiny little, Iona versus Merrimack game or Duke, Kentucky, if you win one or win the other, they're going to pay out the same cash as a big primetime game will pay out. So that being said, let's dive into a few games that have caught my eye. So I'm going to go to Rhythm here. I'm on my NCAA men's tab. I'm going to go to games. So this is going to pull up all of the games for tonight, including the top recommended plays. Like, hey, maybe Detroit will pull off a huge upset. You can get a good money line price there. You scroll down. These are all your top models. But what I'm going to do is go to, first thing I like to do is just hit refresh, just to make sure that all the models are up to date and taking in the latest, kind of wave of data. So it'll take a second. Everything will refresh. Then it's going to give us the notification here that all of our plays are refreshed. So here we go. We're locked and loaded. I'm going to go to all games. And I'm going to focus on, for my first bet of the night, a game that, again, may not be the most popular, but I found a really, really sharp line move. So I'm going to go to Coastal Carolina and Southern Miss. Now, this is a early game, so it's a 6 o'clock game, and we are located right here. So Coastal and Southern Miss. So let's set the stage, and let's kind of interpret what these recommendations are telling us. So this is the first round of the Sun Belt tournament. Both teams are not very good. Both teams have the same record. They're 10-21 on the year. Coastal's the 13 seed. They've been a little bit better down the stretch. They've kind of rotated wins and losses over the last handful of games. You look at on the other hand, Southern Miss, they have lost 8 straight. So both are 10-21. Both are bad records. Southern Miss is seeded slightly higher, the 12th seed versus the 13th seed. But we have seen a big market move in this game. And I'm always interested in how lines move, and not just what they open at and move at, but the moves in between and why they move. Because sometimes it'll be an injury, totals in, sports like baseball or football. The weather can affect, kind of how a line moves. But most of the time, if there's no injuries and basketball's indoors, there's no weather, it's typically smart money that is moving numbers. So the first thing I noticed for this one is that there was a big move towards Southern Miss. Southern Miss opened this game as a pretty short favorite in this one, and this is a neutral site. They open at around a 1.5 point favorite. And the public is saying these teams are exactly the same. They're both 10-21. Again, it's a neutral court. Coastal has played better as of late. Southern Miss has lost 8 straight. So we don't know what to do, 50-50. But what I always love when I'm betting sports is seeing a 50-50 bet split and then seeing a line move. Because, most of the time when the tickets are split down the middle 50-50, a line shouldn't move at all in a vacuum because the tickets are split, the action split. Therefore, the books set a really good number, and there's no reason for them to go up or down. However, at DraftKings, it's 50-50 right down the middle, but the line is steaming towards Southern Miss. Southern Miss open -1.5. They've now been bet up to -3, -3.5. And if you look at the splits in particular at DraftKings, only 47% of bets, but 72% of spread dollars are on Southern Miss. So 50-50 line shouldn't move at all, yet the line's going to Southern Miss. Southern Miss has a really good low bets, higher dollars bet split, basically slightly less than half the tickets, but 3 out of $4. That tells me the bigger, sharper wagers are with Southern Miss. We look to KenPom. He has Southern Miss winning by 3. You look at some of these advantages for Southern Miss. They have the better defensive efficiency, 208th in the country versus 331st for Coastal Carolina. They're better at forcing turnovers, 277th in the country versus 364th for Coastal. And they also have the better scoring offense. So they have the defense and the offense. We have Southern Miss averaging 72 points a game versus 67 for Coastal. And this is also just a fishy play for me on Southern Miss because they're a short favorite on a losing streak against a team that's been better recently. So why did the line open towards Southern Miss and move further towards Southern Miss, even though they're on an 8-game skid? Tells me we got smart money hitting Southern Miss. If you look at also a revenge play here, it's conference tournaments. Everyone starts back at 0, but you did see Southern Miss lose to Coastal 87-78 a couple weeks ago. So hopefully that is an added motivation for them to get some revenge against Coastal Carolina. Now we get to my favorite part of the cap, going to Rhythm and seeing what Rhythm tells us. So we have 2 models here. I always like to compare and contrast the two. So I have my pre-built model that Rhythm gave to me, and then I have my Josh model, which I created. let's click the Rhythm pre-built model. This is telling us that Coastal should be plus 1.9. So in the betting market, they're plus 3.5. You can make a case that taking the points with Coastal is kind of a worthy endeavor here. But then I'm going to look at my Josh model, and I have my Josh model saying Southern Miss should be minus 2.8. So the important thing here is that I am money lining Southern Miss. If you guys have watched any of these live streams before, I'm a big money line short favorites guy. There are so many instances throughout the regular season when you're money lining short favorites in college basketball, where if you money line them, you won your bet. But if you laid the points with the chalk, you lost your bet. So for example, Southern Miss opened minus 1.5. They're up to minus 3.5. Tells me right off the bat, a lot of respected money hit Southern Miss. But let's say a lot of respected money hit Southern Miss minus 1.5, minus 2, minus 2.5. That means if they win by 2 or 3, those early sharps who hit Southern Miss at a low number, they win their bet. If I'm laying a 3.5 right now and Southern Miss wins by 3, I lose. And I don't want to lose. I want to win my bet. So in situations like this, I like to money line short favorites. So I'm playing Southern Miss on the money line. So I can go to money line here. Now they're both telling me to play Coastal, but when I'm looking at these angles here, I'm basically looking at what's the prediction for the final score. So that would be a Southern Miss win right there. And same thing here, a little more bullish on Southern Miss. So I think it's important to kind of think through what you're betting. And what I'm looking for is basically Rhythm kind of agreeing with me in terms of basically they're telling me it should be Southern Miss minus 1.9 or Southern Miss minus 2.8. So Rhythm is telling me that they're predicting Southern Miss to win this game by basically 2 or 3 points. Now, if you're money lining Southern Miss like I am, you only need to win by 1 point. As long as you win by 1, you can win by 1 or 100. Money line, all that matters is getting a victory straight up. So I'm playing Southern Miss on the money line. Now, I got Southern Miss a little bit earlier today at minus 160. They're upwards of around minus 170 right now. So that is, a little bit pricey, but I would always recommend to be disciplined with your bankroll. So if you are a money line short favorites person like I am, every bet you make, you're risking 1 unit. So in this case, I'm risking my 1 unit on Southern Miss minus 160. So if they win this game, I'm going to get like 0.6, 0.7 units back. If Southern Miss loses, then I just lose my 1 unit. The reason why this is important is because a lot of people don't really understand and I can't blame them, the bet to risk versus bet to win scenario. What I just explained to you was betting to risk. You're always risking your 1 unit. That means if you lose any bet, you only lose a unit. You get in trouble when you lose minus 1.1 units, minus 1.8 units. Those can really stack up and really dig a hole for you. If you're betting to win, that's basically risking the 1.6 to win 1. So yeah, if they win the bet, you're going to win more, but if they lose, you're also going to lose more. And the name of the game to me is always trying to maximize your wins, minimize your losses. So long story short, we've talked through this bet in terms of the market move, and Rhythm is telling me Southern Miss should basically be favored by 2 or 3. My first bet of the night is a Southern Miss money line play. Let's go Golden Eagles. I believe they're called the Golden Eagles. On the money line, I got them at minus 160. Next bet that I want to talk about. Let's scroll down to a game that starts at 7 o'clock tonight. It's a conference tournament in the Patriot League. Lehigh and Loyola, Maryland. So let's go find Lehigh and Loyola, Maryland. As I mentioned, 7 o'clock game here for tonight. So we'll keep on cruising, and we will find them right here. So this is where I get a little bit excited. We just talked a game where there was conflicting data. This one's pretty clear. So Lehigh, Loyola, Maryland. Let's set the stage. This is the first round of the Patriot League. Both teams are 11-18 on the year. Lehigh is the 9 seed. They just snapped a 3-game losing skid. They beat Army 89-67. You look at Loyola, Maryland, 11-18, same record. They're the 8 seed. They've lost 6 of their last 7. So what have we seen across the market? Well, the first thing I want to mention is that I think it's important when you're betting these conference tournament games to not just automatically assume that they're all going to be neutral site. Most of them are. Like we always think about, like I'm in New England, like Kemba Walker at Madison Square Garden, UConn. Most of these games are going to be neutral site. But some of them are true home games. especially with these tiny little conferences. So we talked about a second ago with Southern Miss, that's a true neutral site. This game, even though it's the first game of a conference tournament, it's actually a true home game for Loyola, Maryland. So Loyola, Maryland opened as a 1-point true home favorite. And we've now seen Loyola, Maryland get steamed up to -3. So boom, as a person who likes line movement, you got to respect this move toward Loyola, Maryland. Now, the other angle that I like about this Loyola, Maryland play, and hint, hint, I'm going Loyola, Maryland money line, is the fact that this is an added game, extra game. So when you are betting on sports, you're always going to notice a 3-digit number next to both teams. Now, I'm not talking about the juice. That's your -110, -120. I'm talking about the Vegas ID number, the rotation number. Basically, this is a universal number at any sports book, at any live odds platform. It's going to show you the ID number. So, for example, Coastal Carolina, Southern Miss, we just talked about that game. That's game 667, 668. All that means is if you look up at the LED screen at a sports book, that'll be labeled that game. This is just a way to identify the game. More importantly, like if you're betting in person, you're going to walk up to the counter and say like Southern Miss, game 668 money line, whatever amount you're betting, and that would correspond with Southern Miss. The reason why you have that is because if you go up and say, give me $50 on, the Hawks, you don't know if you're talking Atlanta Hawks, St. Joe's Hawks, you want to basically ID correctly the game that you're betting. Now, why do I bring this up? Because if you look at Lehigh, Loyola, Maryland, this is game 306-561, 306-562. So this is a 6-digit Vegas ID or rotation number. That means that it's an added game or an extra game. It's harder to find on the app. It's a tiny little matchup the public doesn't care about. But when I see line movement on these tiny added game, extra games, that's really, really meaningful to me. Because think about it. You wake up today on a Tuesday, there's 44 college basketball games. There's a ton of big matchups. I'll get to Auburn, Texas A&M here in a second, which is the most heavily bet game of the night. Public didn't wake up and say, you know what? I got to bet Lehigh, Loyola, Maryland. It's just not a sexy matchup. It's not a game that people are interested in betting. But remember, the pros don't care, the wise guys, the sharps, whether it's Lehigh, Loyola, Maryland, or Texas A&M, Auburn. As long as they feel like they have an edge, and that's not a feeling, but it's based upon their power ratings and what they have predicted for the game. If they have a discrepancy of, hey, we see value in this bet, we have an edge or an advantage over the sports books, we're going to play it. Even though the public doesn't care about it, that's fine. That's kind of a mistake by the public. Don't just bet games that are on TV. Look at the entire board and try to focus on games that are taking in smart money, not just that are popular. So long story short is when I see a tiny game like this with a line move, I get excited. It tells me you got a lot of smart money taking a position, even though the public doesn't really care about it. If you look at the splits on this game, they look really good for Loyola, Maryland. If you look at DraftKings, they're getting 66% of spread bets, 72% of spread dollars. At Circa, sharp book out in Vegas, Loyola, Maryland, 75% of spread bets, over 90% of spread dollars. So both books, the public DraftKings, the sharp Circa book, all showing really good low bets, higher dollars bet splits in favor of Loyola, Maryland. Now, Loyola, Maryland, I ain't going to lay a 3, have them win by 1 or 2 or 3, and I push or lose. So I moneylined Loyola, Maryland. Say that 10 times fast. A little bit earlier today, I got them at -140. They're now upwards of around, I think, like -150, -160. A couple other advantages I like for Loyola, Maryland: better offensive rebound percentage. How many games have we watched where, the team you're betting on gives up offensive boards and second chance threes? You drive yourself crazy. But it's always nice when your team gets offensive boards and can, get extra possessions. Well, big advantage Loyola, Maryland, 29% offensive rebound percentage, 21% for Lehigh. They're also better at forcing turnovers, 194th in the country versus 249th. And they average more rebounds per game. Typically the team that grabs more boards, usually wins. 34 boards a game versus 32 for Lehigh. Home road, Loyola, Maryland, only 6-7 at home. That's not great. But Lehigh is only 3-13 on the road. So I kind of want to fade Lehigh in the spot. And then the cherry on top, look at my two rhythm models. So first off, you notice they're both caution flags. They're not perfect plays, but they're both on the same side. So my pre-built model says Loyola Maryland should be minus 2.8. And my Josh model says Loyola Maryland should be minus 2.3. So if we're laying the 3, that's not a great edge because Rhythm's got it basically, 2 or 3, and we're laying 3. But money line, all we care about is winning the game. So if you look at the prediction here, Loyola Maryland is predicted to win by about, 2.5 points or so. So my market analysis tells me add a game, extra game, unpopular matchup, big steam here in favor of Loyola Maryland. And Rhythm, the cherry on top, is telling me, hey, we also have Loyola Maryland winning this game by about 2 or 3 points. So my second bet of the night is Loyola Maryland. I got a money line minus 140. Again, you're looking at around minus 150 right now. Next one on the board for my 3-pack here tonight, and then we'll get to some other leans, red flags, games that are checking off a few boxes, but maybe not all of them. I want to go to Temple and Tulsa. 8 o'clock game here tonight. So let's scroll down and find Temple, Tulsa right here. You can probably guess which direction I'm going with this one. There's also an X factor here, which I think is a big benefit toward Tulsa. So let's set the stage. This is not a conference tournament game. This is just regular season, tail end of the regular season. We have Temple coming in 15-14 on the year. Just snapped the 6-game losing skid. They beat South Florida 73-71. Meanwhile, Tulsa 11-18 on the year, big below 500 record, dropped 3 in a row, and just fell to Tulane 79-77. Although they did cover as a 3.5-point home dog. So let's start off with what the market is telling us. Market's telling me Tulsa has a very sharp move today. Tulsa opened around a very short 1-point home favorite, and now Tulsa is up to minus 2.5. So right off the bat, big steam, 1.5-point line move in favor of Tulsa. The Golden Hurricane opened minus 1. Now they're minus 2.5. Tells me smart money hit Tulsa. And this is also a 50-50 bet split. Because if you look at DraftKings right now, public doesn't know what to do. They know that Tulsa is a short favorite at home, but they also know that Tulsa has a losing record and Temple has an above 500 record. So they're right down the middle, 50-50. They don't know whether to take the points with Temple or lay the points with Tulsa. However, as we talked about a second ago, 50-50, a line shouldn't move at all, yet the line moved toward Tulsa, minus 1 up to minus 2.5. So that tells me that smart money has poured in here on Tulsa. If we dig a little deeper here, this is a money line play for me. I got Tulsa minus 134 earlier today because, hey, money line short favorites. I mentioned that. I hammer it home, and you're probably sick of me hearing it. But once you lay a 2.5 and the team wins by 1, you will see the light. Trust me. You're going to pay a little more juice. The payout's going to be a little smaller. And I get this all the time. People are like, well, if you believe in the play, just take the spread. It's like, okay, it's not about believing in the play. It's about protecting yourself because these games get crazy. Like maybe the team's up by 5 and a meaningless 3, they end up winning by 2 by the opponent. Again, you lay a 2.5, you lose. Maybe you're down 1 at the buzzer and you hit a buzzer beater and win by 1 or 2. I'm all about winning the bet versus, paying less, but then having taking more risk basically that you might end up losing. But again, you might disagree. If you want to lay the 2.5 and Tulsa wins by 8, hey, you're going to get a better payout than me. But I can just tell you so many times where laying the points you lose versus money line, you would have won the bet. So that's just my personal style. But anyway, on the money line, Tulsa around minus 140. At DraftKings, you're getting 48% of money line bets, 55% of money line dollars. At Circa, 75% of money line bets, over 90% of money line dollars. So that's the big one that out in Vegas, you're seeing that huge discrepancy. Big wave of smart money playing Tulsa to win the game. A couple angles here that I like about Tulsa. Better defensive efficiency, 240th in the country versus 245th. Nothing huge, but slightly better. But here's another big advantage. Limiting your opponent's effective field goal percentage. So making it harder on the opponent to make shots. Getting in their face, putting a hand up, making it difficult on your opponent. Tulsa ranks 134th in the country. Temple ranks 169th. Also, Tulsa is better at offensive rebounds allowed. They're ranking 236 in fewest offensive rebounds allowed versus Temple ranking nearly 300th. Home road, Tulsa's 8-8 at home. So it's 500, but Temple is only 2-9 on the road. So it's a fade of me of Temple. And then also just the fishy play that Tulsa is a below 500 team on a losing streak. Yet they open as a favorite against an above 500 team, and they become more of a favorite. So that tells me we got smart money playing Tulsa. And then here's the little extra motivation. It's not the cherry on top. It's the sprinkles. You're going to put on top. This is senior night. So that means that it's hopefully added motivation for Tulsa. It's the final game at home. This is, if you played sports in high school or maybe you played in college and, your group has been grinding. I guess it's different now because there's a lot of, with NIL money, a lot of players transfer and go to different schools. But I remember, here's trip down memory lane, glory days. I remember when I played baseball at Mount Greylock with all my boys growing up, senior year, it was the culmination of all these years grinding together. So senior night, sometimes you get a little emotional. It's the ending of one journey, getting ready for the next journey. Whole point being, and I saw this last night, I played Lamar on the money line. It was their senior night. They played great. I'm not betting Tulsa because it's senior night, but if all the market movement is toward Tulsa and it also is senior night, that to me is a good thing. It lines up with basically the way the line is moving. So there are two players on Tulsa who will be honored tonight. They happen to be seniors, and they happen to be the two best players on the team. DeJuan Odom and Keaston Willis. They both average around 13 points a game, and they will both be honored senior night tonight for Tulsa. So line movement toward Tulsa, -1 up to -2.5. Fishy because they have the worse record than Temple, yet they open as a favorite, became more of a favorite. Great bet splits. Last little angle here. Look at my models for this game. First one, my pre-built model, says Tulsa should be -1.8. My Josh model, Tulsa should be, ironically enough, -1.8, basically the same number there. So I think it's important to explain this and really hammer home the fact that we're not laying the 2.5. We just need Tulsa to win the game. And -1.8 means they win the game. It doesn't mean they cover the 2.5, but it means that they win straight up. We'll get the money line plays here. This is why it's a little bit confusing. Basically there's value to take Temple based on the price to win outright. But what I pay attention to is the predicted final score, where Tulsa is predicted to win the game. My Josh model is even a little bit more bullish there on Tulsa. So long story short, market movement, rhythm edges. Rhythm is backing me up in all three plays. So Southern Miss, Loyola Maryland, Tulsa. 3 money line plays. And here's another thing I see a lot on, gambling Twitter and, people who are in the sports betting world. It's let's go 3-0, let's sweep the board, let's crush the books. Okay, that's like cute and everything, but sports betting is really difficult. The goal tonight is to go 2-1. Out of these 3 plays, find a way to get 2 of them, eke out a winning night. So I think it's important to be honest with yourself about what your expectations are. So those are the 3 bets that I have in pocket. Now I want to hit on a few other games that caught my eye that either have a red flag or it's a very hard lean, but I think are worth mentioning and worth talking through. So the big one here tonight that I wanted to talk about is the most heavily bet game of the night, Auburn and Texas A&M. 2 ranked teams. Auburn's the best team in the country here. But I'm thinking about maybe taking the points with Texas A&M. So let's find this game. This is a 9 o'clock game. It's going to be extremely heavily bet. We're going to scroll down and find A&M and Auburn. So the first thing you need to know about this game is that everyone is playing Auburn. And by everyone, I mean the public. And the public sees Auburn with their great record. It's kind of a short number. Currently, you are getting 80% of spread bets at DraftKings playing Auburn. However, Auburn opened as high as -5.5. Auburn is now down to -4.5, even -4. So even though everyone's playing Auburn, and I get it, great team, short number, but that's what the public's saying. That's what every drunk guy at the bar in America is saying tonight. Yet the line is falling toward A&M. So why is the line falling if everyone's playing Auburn? Like if Auburn's getting 80% of bets, they open -5.5. Shouldn't they be up to -6, -6.5? No, the line's actually falling toward Texas A&M. So A&M is a pretty strong lean for me, plus the points. They're only getting 21% of spread bets, so it's a heavily bet primetime game. I can bet against the public. I'm fading the number one team in the country. There's a lot of good analysis and data that basically fading top 5 teams has been profitable ATS. Like, think of it this way. Auburn might win this game, but what if they win by 3? What if they win by 4 and you have the hook? Texas A&M may even win outright. Whole point being is, when you're going spread, it's a whole different ball game than when we were talking about those 3 money lines. So everyone's playing Auburn, yet the line is dropping toward A&M, even though they're very contrarian. So my first thought is, hey, A&M looks kind of sharp. Then I look at my models. I have a recommended pre-built model on A&M telling me that A&M should be plus 3.7. So if I'm getting a 4.5, and this is also why you got to shop for the best line, because there's some 4.5s out there. There are some 4s as well. So you can't just bet through one sports book. You got to have multiple outs. That way you can shop for the best number. Also, you might find a 4.5 at one book that is, plus 4.5 at minus 105. Another book is plus 4.5 at minus 115. You want the minus 105. You want the better juice price. Then we look at my other model here. This is a bit of a caution model, but it's A&M plus 4.6. So it's pretty much right at the number. There's not a huge edge there. But I really respect this one because it is a recommended play. You can always click the recommendation. It'll explain to you. Like here, Rhythm does a great job doing this. Quote, we analyze what your model says, the line and historical data across sports and bet types to identify your best chances of winning. Bets we recommend are marked with green stars. Now, on the other hand, let's talk about this use caution one. This is not a recommended bet. Please refer to the tag below for more details. So you'll get some more insight in the basically the drop-down menu. So long story short, if I'm playing this game, I'm going A&M. Either I'm not playing the game at all, or I'm going A&M in the points. I guess what kind of held me back a little bit is that it opened at 5.5 and it's down to 4.5 or 4, which on the one hand I like because it's sharp reverse line movement, but I feel like I kind of missed a lot of wise guys who like the plus 5.5 plus 5. And this is kind of right on the number, so it's not a huge edge there. Long story short, I personally didn't play A&M because I really like my 3-pack of money line plays, and that's kind of been my thing, just grinding 3-pack money lines, going 2-1. But A&M to me, plus the points, that's the play. Either you're not playing this game or you're taking A&M. I am definitely not going with Auburn because they may roll and they might win by 10, but you're with the public, the line's going the other way, and Rhythm is basically saying this should be, basically a 3 or 4 point game. But A&M was a pretty hard lean for me. Now, my other hard lean was LSU Kentucky. So this is a 7 o'clock game. So let's scroll up to our 7 o'clocks and find LSU and Kentucky. Should be here somewhere. Right here. The first thing that jumped out to me for this game is LSU and the points. Because if you look at the way this line has moved, it really hasn't moved at all. It opened Kentucky minus 12.5 at home, and it's pretty much stayed minus 12.5. I'm even seeing some shops right now fall down to Kentucky minus 12. So the lines either stayed the same or moved slightly toward LSU, even though if you look at the bet splits right now, 66% at DraftKings are taking Kentucky, thinking this is a Kentucky blowout. So public's all over Kentucky, but line has either stayed the same or moved toward LSU. That tells me it is a line freeze play or RLM play. Line freeze is when you have heavy betting one side, but the line won't move at all. RLM is when the line moves away from the popular side toward the unpopular side. So if 2/3 of bets are taking Kentucky, you would think they'd go from minus 12.5 up to minus 13, minus 13.5. But no, they've stayed the same or fallen toward LSU. So it tells me we have some smart money here going LSU. So that's what I noticed from the market. Then I go to Rhythm. Both happen to be LSU predictions. LSU as a recommended play, plus 10.8. So if you're getting a 12.5 when they should lose by basically 11, that's pretty good value. Another model here, 11.1, which is still an edge, 12.5 versus 11.1. So that was another pretty good lean for me, LSU. contrarian. You're against the public because public loves Kentucky, yet the line stayed the same or moved toward LSU. And both rhythm edges are telling me, hey, there's value here to take the 12.5. So those were two leans for me, Texas A&M and LSU. Now, here are what I like to call the red flag bets. Basically, there's a couple things that I like, but there are other things that basically are making me lay off and not play the game. And ideally, when I'm betting a game, I want everything to line up. The market, the bet splits, the system matches, the rhythm edge. I don't want the market to tell me A and then rhythm to tell me B, because I feel like I'm not lining up everything, correctly. And again, bet may win anyway or lose anyway. That's not really the point. The point is that with a board of 44 games today, we want to get down on the games that we feel, and I say feel based, like you might think it's emotional, but no, we feel based on the data are all lining up in the same direction. So my two red flag games, the first one is BYU and Iowa State, and that is a 9 o'clock game. So let's find BYU, Iowa State tonight at 9. So we'll scroll down quite a bit. And where are we at? Here we go. BYU, Iowa State. So from a betting perspective, the thing that I notice is that Iowa State looks kind of sharp tonight, because Iowa State opened around, some books open -8, 8.5, and they're either the same or up to 8.5 or 9. So the line's kind of moving a little bit toward Iowa State, but the betting public is actually on the opposite side. Around 55% of bets are taking BYU in the points. So public is leaning BYU in the points, yet the line is moving a little bit toward Iowa State. Iowa State's only getting 45% of bets, but 70% of dollars at DraftKings. So my interpretation is it's a bit of a fade the trendy dog. Public's on the trendy dog BYU Cougars, but the line's moving a little bit toward Iowa State. So my first thing is, I'd maybe laying the points here with Iowa State. But here's why it's a layoff game for me. Because my first recommended model says take BYU. Again, Rhythm is predicting a 6.7 game. You're getting 8.5. And you can even find a 9 out there. So that would say take BYU. My other model, 7.6, that would still be kind of BYU in the points. But what I'm getting at is that the betting market looks kind of sharp toward Iowa State. Lines move toward Iowa State, -8 up to 8.5 or 9. Really good low bets, higher dollars bet split. But I have two conflicting models, and my strongest model says take BYU. So if I take BYU, yes, I have the rhythm edge, but I'm going up against the line movement and the sharps look to be on Iowa State. If I play Iowa State, yes, I'm with the betting market, but then I'm kind of ignoring a pretty good rhythm edge. So here's a perfect example of a layoff game for me. Market's telling me Iowa State, rhythm is telling me BYU. So you know what? No bet. No mas. And then the other game that I wanted to mention real quick, because this one's kind of been fascinating. It's basically a pick 'em, but it's gone back and forth all day. Georgia and South Carolina. So it's an early game. This is a 6 o'clock game. So let's go to the very top of our rhythm predictions and check this one out. So I fully admit this is a bit of a toss-up. I initially was looking toward Georgia in this one because you saw some line movement in favor of Georgia. Georgia went from a 1.5 point dog to then a 1 point favorite and even got up to -1.5. So there was a dog to fave line move in favor of Georgia, but now you're seeing this line kind of get back down to a pick or even flip back towards South Carolina -1. So sometimes you'll see this. Basically, the way I interpret it is you have conflicting sharp money. Now the public is on Georgia here, better record. 67% of bets at DraftKings are on Georgia. So I respected the line move toward Georgia, dog to fave, but I'm with the public, and rhythm is telling me I should take South Carolina. They're basically favored by a 0.5 point based on rhythm, but in the betting market, you might be able to shop around and find a +1 or +1.5 on South Carolina. So when you see this conflicting kind of, first let's start with the market. It flipped toward Georgia. Now it's kind of coming back towards South Carolina. anytime you have a pick'em type game, usually you're going to have sharps kind of like, it's clear the public likes Georgia just because they have a better record. But sharps are going to bet based on their power ratings, their models, their formulas, what they have predicted for this game. So what that tells me is that, sharps are not a monolith. They're not just automatically always on one side. You can have dueling sharp action where a group of sharps or wise guys or syndicates are basically a group of sharps that work together and get down hard at multiple books, cause market-wide movement, big steam. They're undecided. So basically they're decided, but they're conflicting, if that makes sense. So there's probably one group of wise guys out there who have Georgia -1, -1.5. And there's another group of sharps who disagree, and they say, we like South Carolina -1, -1.5. So I like the dog to fave line move to Georgia, but Rhythm is telling me, it should actually be a play on South Carolina, especially if you're able to get a point and a half. And South Carolina is contrarian as well. They're only getting around a third of bets. So this is one of those games where I ain't touching it. I'm laying off. The line's going back and forth. It's about a pick'em game, which means it's a coin flip game. But Rhythm is telling me, hey, this is a play here on the Gamecocks. The market, again, it did move at one point toward Georgia. So no play for me. You're not lining up everything perfectly. And I always make this analogy too, like one of my favorite shows is Better Call Saul. For the Breaking Bad people out there, what's better, Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul? It's probably Breaking Bad, but Better Call Saul is amazing. But anyway, when Slip and Jimmy or Kim Wexler are arguing a case, they need all the evidence to line up in one direction, enough so that they can convince a jury, beyond a reasonable doubt of finding the person guilty or not guilty. When you are a sports bettor, you want to line up all of your evidence and information in the same, specific position. Like, I want the bet splits, the line movement, the system matches, the rhythm edges, all to be on right here, team A. If the splits are here, but, the percentages are there and the line's here and rhythm's there, we don't have enough, basically one-sided evidence to, convince a jury. And the jury is you as the bettor deciding whether or not you want to place the bet. And remember, there's nothing wrong with laying off. If you don't feel like you have a clear edge, your best bet probably is to lay off. So I always want to mention that. So that's about it for today's live stream. Reminder, Southern Miss, Loyola Maryland, Tulsa, those are my official best bets, all money lines for tonight. I'll be rooting for A&M and LSU because they did look pretty good, as pretty good leans. And then Iowa State, BYU, Georgia, South Carolina, no bets because, again, we have conflicting data one way or the other. But as always, I want to thank everyone for tuning in. It's always a treat for me to host these live streams. And really, I think a lot of people might tune in and just say, give me the bets, and, I hope they win. And I'll say, congrats if you win, or I'll hammer you on Twitter if you lose. That's part of the game. That's fine. But always remember, when we do these live streams, yes, we want to pick out winners and cash bets. But really, the most important thing to me is teaching bettors how to use rhythm to their advantage. How to interpret the recommendations, when to place a bet versus when to lay off a bet. That really is more than half the battle sometimes. So as always, if you haven't done it yet, please go download Rhythm from the App Store, iTunes, or Google. You can download the free trial just by, let's go, I got it the other way. Point up there in the corner to just scan that QR code, and you can get Rhythm locked and loaded. Also would highly recommend giving Rhythm a 5-star review on the App Store, which would really mean a lot to me and make my buddy James Santor happy. And lastly, right here, the big piece of info, big news. You can now request your March Madness brackets. You can do it by clicking that request. And then what I also like, right up there, MLB coming soon. Cannot wait. So thank you all for tuning in. Another Tuesday live stream here in the books. We'll be right back at it next Tuesday. And that'll be fully conference tournaments, March Madness. And again, best time of year to be betting on sports. Hope everyone has a great night. Thank you for tuning in. Hopefully you can cash some tickets. Tell your friends about Rhythm. Download the app. Get a 7-day free trial. You can jump in the Discord as well. I hope everyone has a great night and good luck. I will see you next Tuesday for next week's edition of the College Hoops Live rhythm stream with myself, Josh Appelbaum. If you're ever looking for more, you can find me on Twitter at Josh_insights. You can always check out my breakdowns from the All Systems Go Sports Betting Pod on Spotify or iTunes. But good luck, everyone. And hey, can you smell the madness in the air? Great time to be betting on sports. Good luck, and I will see you guys next time.